you so much for joining me. My name is Kay Thompson, and this is the newest installment of A Lesson in Real Estate. I'm sure that all of you out there who are watching me now were just as taken aback as I was over the last couple of years about what has been happening in our real estate markets, whether it's at the national level, whether it's at a state level, or even local. And about this same time last year, we had a super hot real estate market at every level nationally for most states and at the local area market levels. And some of our homes, in fact, a lot of them in our country were being sold for a lot more than we had them listed for. People were foregoing things that were important normally in the home buying transaction process, such as appraisals, such as home inspections and things of that nature, just because they were so afraid that they weren't going to be able to purchase a home that they needed. The coronavirus or COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated that. So a lot of us in the real estate market were really feeling the pressure from buyers, specifically first-time home buyers, who were actually being pushed out of the retail market due to the fact that there were investors and people who were not first-time home buyers, but who were looking to move up in the level of home that they were looking to acquire. Interest rates had a lot to do with it as well. For a couple of years there, we had some historically low interest rates that was actually being used to boost the economy. If you have been watching my program, then you know that in the past I've talked about briefly how real estate connects with the rest of the economy and how it's a major driver of the overall well-being of our economy. Some houses were selling in less than an hour. And like I said, we just had a really, really difficult market. Now, fast forward a year later, and we do still have a very competitive market. In fact, some people from where I would like to say the expert pool, our real estate gurus and things of that nature, certain economists were all saying that the real estate market was going to crash. We were going to see these drops in home prices and home values, and that just has not been the case. Now, to their credit, these people do tend to know what they're talking about under normal circumstances, because there's data and trends. Just like with any business, there's a sales cycle, and a lot of times there are factors that drive the success and the steam of that sales cycle. And we have just had some very unique situations that occur, which make our economists and those people who are real estate gurus seem less expert. But like I said, there's just some strange things that have been happening nationally that have kind of caused things to shift in a way that historically they wouldn't be shifting, giving the same set of parameters that we look at. And so that's kind of what we were faced with in the last couple of years. We've had people being pushed out of the market. We've had instances where people have been exposed, real estate appraisers, for undervaluing or incorrectly placing value on properties because of predetermined key markers that say this house should be worth less, primarily because of who lives there and things of that nature. And so we're kind of still in the middle of a certain reckoning. I know that there's certain financial institutions that have had to pay hefty fines and create programs to help kind of undo some of the damage that has been done systemically by our government, by the laws that we abide by, and other factors that create a gap in home ownership between the those that are more economically fortunate than the rest of us, and based on color and nationality and things of that nature. Excuse me. Now, that is not the purpose for this particular episode. I just kind of wanted to, bring everybody up to speed as to where we are in our real estate markets and how things are kind of trending, just to give a broad overview, because I thought it would be a good segue into what I'm going to talk about today. So for those of you who don't know where I am located in the state of Tennessee. I was not born here, but I have been here long enough to consider myself a Tennessean by the way of Mississippi. So I service and provide information for people in several different areas around the country as it relates to real estate. And so I tend to pay attention more so in the state of Tennessee and Mississippi than other places, because I'm looking to see what my local government is going to do when we're faced with certain issues, so that I am an educated voter and things of that nature. And so, like I was saying, in the last couple of years, it's actually been more like the last 4 or 5 years, we've been tasked with having, as real estate professionals, this really robust and really active real estate market. And even though there's some changes and there's been some slowdown in certain areas, it's still a challenge because we still have record low inventory. Our builders and contractors are trying to, build as fast as they can in order to meet the demand that we still currently have in our world. And on top of that, we have one small town in the state of Tennessee that's faced with a separate issue that relates to real estate. And I just thought that I would shed light on a specific term that we don't hear about often. But when this term and the things that surround it are put into place, it can have a great effect on not only our personal family and our personal lives, but the lives of our community. And it's usually affecting areas where there is a lot of economically challenged people and people of color in a much more adverse way than it would others. And so with that being said, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the idea of eminent domain and what that really means to people, and what it can mean for you and in your community, actually. So like I said, in the case of this one small town, Mason, Tennessee, there's roughly 1,700 people, and they all have had their share of challenges in the recent history. As a matter of fact, they were in a battle with the Tennessee state government to keep control over their city affairs. There were some people in their city local government that the state government felt may not have been using the best judgment that they should have to keep the town moving forward. They had, some issues there, and so that was, I think, one of the first things that brought this town to light for us locally. And then shortly thereafter, we heard the announcement that that a major corporation, the Ford Motor Company, was going to be bringing to that area a huge automobile plant, which they have, called the Ford Blue Oval City. And this plant is supposed to be coming with the promise of adding more jobs to the area and more commerce. There will be more retail establishments, more eatery, more things to do in the area, just because there are limited number of people that are in the community. They would not be able to effectively run this plant on their own, so they're expecting people are going to be moving to this area in order to take on some of those, well-paying jobs that they'll have in the Blue Oval City. However, many of the people that live in this town have lived there for decades. They have lived on their land for decades. They own it free and clear. A lot of these people are farmers, so they contribute to the food supply, not only of that area locally there in Mason, but I'm sure across counties, across our state, and maybe even in the nation. They've raised their families there. They're raising grandkids and great grandkids there. A lot of these people are already at the age of retirement, so they wouldn't even be eligible to do a lot of the work that may be available in the Blue Oval City. And yet they're being pushed out of their property, some of them by eminent domain. And for those of you who do not know what I mean when I say eminent domain, I'm going to put it to you very clearly. It's very simple. Eminent domain is simply the power that our federal government gives our local government. So it's the power of the government to claim private property, to do with whatever they think they should be doing with it. So land that you own, that you have paid for with, your resources, blood, sweat, and tears. The government has this power in certain cases to come in and just, take over that land from you. And now I do want to point out that there are some conditions that must be met first in order for the government to claim eminent domain. In the state of Tennessee, where our story lies, there are some conditions that are supposed to prevent the taking of lands unnecessarily and just for purposes of greed. And so one of them is that the government can take land for the use for the public. So if they wanted to build roads or bridges, and there was a need for that for public health and safety, they could absolutely do that. Also, the government is required legally to pay just compensation for the land that they take by the process of eminent domain, and that is the issue that the good people in Mason, Tennessee are faced with. So like I said, most of these people are farmers. They work agriculture. They use the fruits of their labor from their land to take care of their families, to feed them, and to feed a lot of our families here in the state of Tennessee, and probably even nationally. And they are being offered ridiculously low pricing for their land. So somewhere around $10 an acre is what one person was offered for his 400 acres of land that has a mineral spring, a water spring on it. And for those of you who don't know this, Tennessee is known for how great its water is. And so for him to just be offered, $10 measly an acre is just an insult. So I wanted to point out first that there are in many places there is a way to attempt to stop the process of eminent domain, and that would be to prove that the intended use of the land in question would not actually be used for a purpose that benefits the public. And I am actually I live in Tennessee, but I wasn't born here. When my parents moved here, they moved to a neighborhood that actually no longer exists because that neighborhood was taken over by the eminent domain process. And while some of the land was used to do whatever they were doing to put this corporation there, actually, a lot of the land surrounding it was never repurposed. And so I saw people in my neighborhood be displaced and have to move and start over, building lives and memories and generational wealth. And I'm pretty sure it angers them just like it does me to be able to drive past that neighborhood or that area and know that a neighborhood was once there with families and things of that nature, and now it's just vacant land and it's not being used. So what are some things that you can do if you find that your city government or your local government is using the process of eminent domain correctly to protect yourself? The first thing that you can do is contact a real estate agent to get what's commonly called a CMA, or comparable market analysis. This is a report that real estate agents use to provide customers which have information on it about what's happening in the market, what's the activity like in the area surrounding your property, and what have properties that are most similar to yours and most closest in proximity sold for in the recent months. The next thing that you could do is ask that same real estate agent or real estate broker to prepare a more detailed report called a broker price opinion or BPO. The purpose of this report is to provide, like I said, greater insight into the current retail real estate market where your property is located or the property in question is located, and it provides a possible sales price range, or I should say listing price range, for the seller. This type of report can also be used to adjust for functional and economic obsolescence as it relates to your property and compared to the properties that the professional uses to bring you that possible listing range. I do want to point out that the broker price opinion is not the same as an appraisal because we're only giving you, as a real estate professional, a range that you could list your house for on the market. So what the fair market listing range is. And then if you wanted something that showed you what your house was actually worth, obviously you would reach out to a real estate appraiser. There are certified real estate appraisers, and then there are certified residential real estate appraisers, and then there are certified appraiser generals. Usually the certified real estate appraiser can appraise anything up to $1 million. The certified general real estate appraiser can appraise things that are over that, but they will actually be able to come out and inspect your property just the same way as a real estate agent could do. And they would be able to, at that point, give you a value for your home, and then you could then take that information to begin working to create a situation for yourself. If you're faced with eminent domain, that would be something that you could actually live with. Real estate agents do not have the expertise to provide an opinion of value. I just cannot stress that enough. If you want to know what your property could list competitively for and sell for on the market, then they could do that. But they cannot tell you what your property is worth. You absolutely need a residential real estate appraiser in order to do that. Now, you could get either a BPO or an appraisal for a cost. Obviously, the appraisal is going to cost you more than the BPO. Each real estate professional sets their own pricing, just as appraisers do for those BPOs. But CMAs, mostly you can get those for free from a real estate agent or realtist or realtor. I would also like to point out to our viewers that the tax value that you see for your property is generally not the same number as what a real estate agent or an appraiser will come up with when they're helping you to determine a list price or a value. And it should not be used, in my opinion, to negotiate the terms of what you need to have in order to relinquish your property through the process of eminent domain. So I strongly urge you guys to take advantage of those reports if you're faced with that, or reach out to a real estate professional or an appraiser to obtain those if you don't have them. While it is good to know what your tax value is, that's strictly for the purposes of helping to determine what you will pay in terms of real estate taxes each year for your property. I would not suggest in this case where you're faced with eminent domain to use that as a negotiating tool for yourself. So you definitely want to know what you don't know. So if you don't know the retail value of your property, you will reach out to those people that I just mentioned to find that out. Consider other things like your moving expenses. How much is it going to cost you to vacate the property? Are you going to have to pay increased payments because of this vacating? Will they be giving you enough money for you to purchase another home, especially if you own the current home outright? Know what the cost of a new home will be for you that has all of the things that you have in the property that they're wishing to take by way of eminent domain. Know your rights and consult a professional if you don't know them. Don't sign things just because they say, oh, this is perfect. Consult a real estate attorney or some legal professional that can help you to determine what's right for you and what's best for you based on what they're putting in these contracts for eminent domain. And I really wanted to share all of that information with you for several reasons. A couple I believe I've already stated previously, but I just wanted to reiterate here. Eminent domain, the process of eminent domain has historically hurt communities where there are predominantly people of color and people that are economically challenged. They usually do not perform the task of taking property via eminent domain in wealthy communities, upper economic, the upper echelons of our economic classes. They leave those people alone. They usually use areas that that the upper class deem undesirable to run these bridges and these highways and byways through. So if you are someone that is in one of those communities that may be less desirable, but you're living there and you feel safe and you know your neighbors and you know that it is a good community, then you ought to want to stand up and fight for that. We should be talking to our local, state, and even national leaders about making the policies that govern how the government can come in and take over our lands through the process of eminent domain much more clearer to people. We should be discussing that much more, and we should be sharing with people the data that's out there that shows what this process does and how it affects our communities. And then often, like I said before, some of the lands that are taken by the process of eminent domain are never repurposed. So we're displacing people, families, children, in out of these areas, and then not putting anything there back. So that creates higher rates of crime in these areas. It also makes the property or in the area less desirable for those people who may want to bring commerce to it. And it just continues the perpetuation of, the poverty cycle for so many, because those people who might have owned those little lands are now faced with trying to find comparable properties at today's prices. And if they can't do that, then you have taken away the one thing that they may have had that would help them to create generational wealth for themselves and their posterity. So we really should be looking at how this all affects those people in these places and then figuring out the best solutions for them, instead of just assuming that if we put a big plant in the area and we bring all these restaurants and all of these things, all of these types of jobs that, yes, do offer wages, but are typically not a living wage, making it thus even more impossible for these people to remain in the areas that they find hold near and dear and call home, because they just can't afford them. It's just not the way we should be treating our fellow citizens, and it just should not be a part of our economic makeup. I'm not saying that I am against eminent domain, because I do feel like in some instances we do need to have stronger, sounder infrastructure, and we do need things that are going to help the public experience healthier, safer lives. But we cannot do it do that under the guise of those things and then not provide those things on the back end once we have taken over the people's land. I would like to point out, in the state of Tennessee, where some of the people in there, where there's a clear divide. Let me say that. The further west you go, the more people of color and minority people you see in our state. going east, you tend to see less and less of that. And just want to point out that, like I said, you can go and Google or go to YouTube and find all these stories about how historically our people have been suffering and not being able to come back economically because of the process of eminent domain. And this little town in Mason, Tennessee with 1,700 people is no different. It is a predominantly black town. And as of today's reporting, about 15 people or 15 families in that area have lost their homes through the process of eminent domain, and the others are receiving lowball offers. I would like to point out that it has been reported that in the case of the Blue Oval City, the citizens of Mason, Tennessee are all for the Ford Motor Company providing an opportunity to bring more jobs, commerce, and other opportunities to the area. They just want to be fairly compensated for their land. And I hope that some of you out there watching can glean some valuable information from today's episode and use it to be sure that if you are faced with a situation like the one in Mason, that you know how to properly navigate the situation, that you are not afraid to put on your negotiation hats and make negotiations during that process that are going to be the best and have the best impact for you and your family's future. And so with that being said, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you enjoyed the new intro and outro that we have. And we're going to be bringing you, like I said, some wonderful new programming. We're going to have some guest speakers this season, and people that are going to be talking to us about, you know, what we can do to keep the world of real estate moving forward and to keep you included in that. With that being said, I'd like to thank you for joining me. I am Kate Thompson. This has been a lesson in real estate. And until next time, take care of yourselves and your families. Bye now.